Good morning, class. Today we're headed to our new topic, but before we explore our new topic for today, let's have a recap first of what we've learned from the previous lesson. Okay? Great. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to mention key terms from the previous lesson, and for your responses, kindly just post it to the comment section and I'll read it to the class. Great. And by the way, my name is Miss Sofia Natividad. You can call me Miss or Ma'am. Okay, great. So first key term from the previous lesson. The first word would be extracellular matrix. Again, extracellular matrix. Kindly comment your response to the comment section below. Just what you've learned about that word. Just describe it or any definition that you could remember. And yes, we have our first student, and that would be Miss Inocilias. Hi, good morning, Miss Inocilias. So Miss Inocilias said that extracellular matrix surrounds the cell. It contains protein. Right, that is correct. And another one for Miss Ayas. Miss Ayas said that it provides a scaffold for cell attachment. That is right. Extracellular matrix provide scaffold for the cell attachment in the process. And the last one would be Mr. Agadi. Hi, Mr. Agadi. And he said that extracellular matrix transmits chemical messages to the cells. Okay, great. Thank you so much for all your responses, class. Actually, all your answers are correct. And because extracellular matrix helps cells to bind together and regulates a number of cellular functions, and that would be such as adhesion, migration, proliferation, and differentiation. Okay, so yeah, that would be the function of extracellular matrix. And next word would be cell wall. Okay, cell wall. Okay, we all know about cell wall. It's part of the part of the cell. So kindly just comment your answers to the comment section below so I can read it to the class. Okay. Let's have Mr. Tabalyaha. Mr. Tabalyaha said cell walls contain two layers, the middle lamella and the primary cell wall. But there's already also like an additional layer for that, and that we call a secondary wall. While Miss Suan said that cellulose makes up the majority building material of the cell wall. Right, correct. Great, we've learned a lot from the previous lesson, and since we already had a recap with the previous lesson, let's move forward and have our new lesson for today. Okay, great. So for our new lesson for today, before I reveal the name or the title of our lesson, let's have first this question, because this is how I'm going to introduce to you the lesson for today. So here's the question. Okay, before I give you my question, let's have first like a base knowledge of what our topic is all about. Okay, we all know that our body is made out of cells, right? Because cell is the basic unit of life. And the most basic example that I could give you for this one would be the fertilization process. We're quite familiar on about the fertilization process, on how does it happen, right? You need the basic one would be you need an egg cell and a sperm cell. And in order for the egg cell to be fertilized, the egg cell needs the sperm cell. right? And the sperm cell comes from the male and the egg cell comes from the female. My question is, do you know how sperm cell fertilize the egg cell, or how what they did to fertilize, what they did before they fertilize the egg cell? Okay, so anyone could, you're free to answer or give your answers to the comment section below, and I'll read it to the class. Okay, so according to one of the students, he said that yes, ma'am, in order for the egg cell to be fertilized, the egg cell needs the sperm cell, and the sperm cell travels and fight over a thousand millions of other sperm cells to reach the egg cell first. Yes, that is correct, because when we do the fertilization, it's not only for one sperm cell. There is a lot or millions of sperm cells, and they're going to fight over to reach the egg cell first. And here's the thing, you use the word travel, right? Have you ever wondered how can the sperm cell travel from the male reproductive to the female reproductive? Yes, they're going to have sex, and once the male had his sperm cell from the inner system of the female system, then the sperm cell will search for the mature egg cell, right? So here's our lesson for today. We'll discover how cells, because cell is like because sperm cell is a form of cell, as from the word, and how does sperm cell travel, or what did sperm cell use or to move around and find the egg cell. Okay, so I'm going to show you a video presentation all about cell, especially the sperm cell. Okay, and it is actually related to our topic, because our topic for today, class, is all about cells. It's cell motility and cytoskeleton. So let's watch the video first, so we'll have an introduction of our topic. Okay, great. And let's watch the video.
So, without explicitly thinking about it, we all probably have some idea that some cells move around, that they have to move around in our bodies to do their jobs properly. And I don't mean like red blood cells. Here's some in a blood vessel here. Here's some red blood cells, right? Red blood cells are actually pumped around in our circulation by our heart. So they just go with the flow. They go with the flow, but they don't actually swim around in our blood, right? That would be a little strange. They just kind of get pumped along. But there are other cells that do swim around a bit. There's other cells that can move around on their own, and not just in our bloodstream. Some can move pretty well throughout our tissues as well. And cells migrating and moving around in our bodies is incredibly important. Actually, in development, cells migrating from one part of the embryo to another is really, really important in forming our tissues and our organ systems. And in our adult bodies, cell movement is critically important for things like our immune system function. So what I want to do now is I just want to look at a few different ways our cells manage to move around. So why don't we start with sperm cells? These guys move around in an interesting way. So here's some sperm, right, produced in the testes. And you probably know that their entire life is essentially all about movement. They have a long way to go in their lifetime. Of course, I'm talking about their epic journey toward an egg for fertilization. So they need a way to move around, and that's where this flagellum comes in. So this is essentially a tail, right? A tail that whips around to propel the sperm along. And in humans, this flagellum is made of, if we zoom in on it a bit, it's made of these little monomers of microtubule proteins that get put together, sort of like Lego. And they work together along with these little connections between them called dynein proteins to whip this flagellum back and forth and cause the sperm to move. And you can actually find flagellae in bacteria and archaea as well, but they're made slightly different in these two. of different proteins and with some little motor proteins here, and you could actually have more than one flagellum per cell in bacteria and so on. So a little different, but we won't worry about that too much here. So our flagella are one of the ways our cells can move around. And in fact, if your sperm couldn't move around properly, let's say if your flagella failed to form properly, like you might see in certain diseases, it'd be a lot harder for your sperm to get to an egg to fertilize it, right? So already you can see movement in sperm is just critically important. And another way of cell movement that's totally different to sperm is the way that white blood cells move around. So the cells of our immune system. So I'll use a type of white blood cell called a neutrophil for our example. Here's our neutrophil here. It's nice and neutrophil-y. It's neutrophil mom and dad are very proud of how strong it is. So these cells are a major part of our immune system, especially in dealing with bacterial infections. So what they like to do is they sort of travel around our bloodstream, right? Here's our neutrophil in our bloodstream here. So they travel around until they get this signal from somewhere in the tissues that says that their help is needed, right? Maybe to take care of a bacterium or something like that. So they get this signal, kind of like the Batman signal that goes up in the sky, except this is either more cool or less cool than the Batman signal, depending on what your tastes are, I guess. I'm kind of on the fence, but anyway. So they float around, and if they're in range of a signal, they respond to it. So they respond to it by sticking to the endothelium, the lining of the blood vessel that they're in, and they sort of roll along for a bit. And then at some point they duck between two endothelial cells and continue moving along inside the tissues here to where they're needed. So the point I'm trying to make is that, wow, that's a lot of movement, right? This thing just moved more than Michael Jackson in his heyday. So how can a cell manage to do that? Well, essentially it all comes down to its cytoskeleton, the set of proteins that makes up its structure. This literally means cell skeleton here, cyto for cell if you remember your Greek. So let's look at the two major mechanisms that cells are thought to move around by. There are two sort of theories for cell movements about how cells move around. And it's not entirely known yet if cells use one mechanism or just the other mechanism or maybe both of them to move around. That's not totally known yet, but here they are. So the first mechanism is the cytoskeletal model of movement. So here's our cell, right? Let's say it's our neutrophil again. So essentially this theory holds that the cell really quickly polymerizes. It puts together these little proteins it has inside called actin proteins. So again, kind of like putting Lego pieces together, it polymerizes these little filaments made out of actin proteins at the front of the cell here, the leading edge of the cell. And this pushes the cell forward a little. This is the main way that the cell's forward edge is advanced. And the back, what happens at the back of the cell? Well, interestingly, our microtubule friends, remember we talked about them forming the majority of our sperm's flagellum. Well, in this case, we have microtubules back here that do a few things. And I don't know too much about boats, only what I learned from the Wind Waker Zelda game, but our microtubules back here act as sort of a rudder to steer our cell while the actin at the leading edge is extending away its filaments, right? And the microtubules also act as an anchor to stop our cell from moving. So let me clarify here. The microtubules can take on either a fixed or a super flexible state. So when they're being nice and flexible and dynamic, they can help set the direction that the cell moves in, right? Like a rudder on a boat. And when they're being a bit stubborn and fixed, they act like an anchor, and they don't let the cell go anywhere, even if the leading edge is trying to get things going. So that's sort of the idea behind the cytoskeletal model. And the membrane flow model, this is our second theory of movement. This one's pretty cool too. So in this model, here's our new cell, right? The idea is that bits of the plasma membrane, they endocytose, they get internalized as vesicles from all parts of the cell, and then they move toward the front of the cell to exocytose there and add membrane at the front. But there's two different types of endocytosed vesicles that get produced. There's ones made of just plasma membrane, right? So all they do is they extend the leading edge a bit. And then there's ones with little foot proteins attached called integrins. So when these integrins exocytose, they get deposited at the front of the cell, they sort of stick their foot down and they anchor this bit of cell membrane down here to help the cell crawl along and move in this direction. Then you get a bunch more plasma membrane ones, just adding membrane in this direction. Then you might get some more integrin feet coming down here. So the net effect is movement in this direction here.
Okay, class, we're done watching the video, and I'm going to give you questions based on the video we watch. Okay, and again, you are free to comment your response or answer to the comment section, and I'm going to read it to the class. Okay, first, based on the video, what does the sperm cell do to find the egg cell? Again, since that it's all about motility or movement of the cells, based on the video, what does the sperm cell do to find the egg cell? Okay, let's wait for your responses. And yes, okay, majority of your responses says that they move around and find the egg cell. Correct. How that is actually correct. The egg cell, or the sperm cell rather, moves around to search for the egg cell for it to be fertilized. And second question, how do they move around? Right. Have you ever wondered about that? Like, is there a special part in the sperm cell that sperm cell used to move around or travel to find the egg cell? Okay. And yes, they said that according to the video, they move around through the help of the flagella. Correct. The string attached to the body of the sperm cell, that is the part of the sperm cell that it helps use to help the sperm cell to move around or travel throughout the journey to find the egg cell. Correct. Very good, guys. And the third question would be, what will happen if the flagella is not working properly? Like, if it's not working, or it does not help the sperm cell to move around and find the egg cell, what will happen? Okay, it says here that it will not immediately find the egg cell to fertilize it. Right, yes. And yeah, that is correct. So for instance, we can compare the flagella to our feet. So if our feet is not working properly, or we have a disability, then we'll really have a hard time to reach a location we want to go, right? Like going to a shop or malls. If we have a problem with our feet, or if our feet is sore, it doesn't work properly, and we'll have a hard time to go to the place we want to go, right? Okay, same goes for the sperm cell. If the flagella will not work or is not working properly, then it will really have a hard time reaching the egg cell. And worst case scenario, their sperm cell might raise overhand first, or the egg cell first, to reach the egg cell. Okay, last, is movement critically important for sperm cells? What do you think, guys? Is it really important if the sperm cell will not move accordingly or properly? Is it really important to the fertilization? Hey, of course, yes, it is. It's really important because sperm cell is all about movements. It travels. It's the one who's going to find the egg cell. So movement is really critical for sperm cell. And if the sperm cell will have a problem with its flagella, then it will be there will be a problem with the fertilization, or there would be no fertilization that will happen. Okay, and the last question, this is the last question, guys. What will happen if sperm cells do not have flagella? Okay, I know it's really basic questions, but this is just probably questions about how important movements for a sperm cell. Okay, according to the class, They cannot move or do their task or what they're supposed to do. Correct, that is correct. So here, as based on your responses from my questions, it's really obvious that movement is really critical or important for cells. In order for them to do their task, they really have to move around and do what they are assigned to do. Like for the sperm cell, it is assigned or destined to, fertilize the egg, so that so movement is really important for egg cells. And now, since that we're all done with that, let's have a proper discussion of our lesson, and that would be cell motility and cytoskeleton. So I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Martinez because he's be the one to, give you the proper discussion about this one. Thank you so much for listening. Let's go ahead and listen to Mr. Martinez.
Okay, good morning class. So this is the continuation of our topic, which is the cell motility and cytoskeleton. So first we have here a definition about what is cell motility. So cell motility is the ability of a cell or organism to move its own upward by expanding energy. So in other words class, it is the spontaneous movement cell from one location to another by consumption of energy. Okay, so why is cell motility is important? Okay, anyone? Okay, yes, at the back? Okay, very good class. So it is important because it helps ensure that your cell gets to where we're supposed to be. Especially it is important in developing tissues. Okay, the next one we have cytoskeleton. So what is cytoskeleton? So is a complex dynamic network of interlinking protein filaments present in the cytoplasm of all cells, including bacteria and archaea. So cytoskeleton also class is a structure that helps cell maintain their shapes and internal organization, and it also provides mechanical support that enables cells to carry out. So what is the function of cytoskeleton? So it provides mechanical support that enable cells to carry out essential functions like division and movement. There is no single cytoskeletal components. Okay class, so I have here the structure of cytoskeleton. So I will show to you. Okay, this is the structure of cytoskeleton. So we have here the cytoplasm, nucleus, and the microfilaments here, and cell membrane in the upper part, and intermediate filaments, and microtubule. So now, let's talk about how do sperm cells and egg cells meet. Okay, so I have here class a picture of sperm cell. So, meet sperm cell. The entire life of a sperm cell is all about movement towards the egg cells for the piece of fertilization. So in the setting class, egg cells and sperm cell travel in opposite direction to meet in the fallopian tubes. During ovulation class, ovaries release an egg into one of the fallopian tubes, and the egg proceeds down the tube towards the uterus, which is being prepared for opposite implantation. So how does sperm cell move around? It's because of a flagellum, a tail that whips around the profile the sperm cell along. So when we talk about flagellum class, it is a last-like appendage that produced from the cell body of certain cell. So, how do cells move? Okay, to be able to move, the cell must attach itself to a surface and use its front to push and exert the force it needs. So there are three types of protein fibers in cytoskeleton, which is, first we have the microfilaments, second we have the intermediate filaments, third microtubules. So when we talk about microfilament class, also called actin filament, are protein filament in the cytoplasm of eukaryotic cells that form part of the cytoskeleton. And intermediate filament also class, these are the cytoskeletal structural component found in the cell of vertebrate. And lastly class, microtubules are polymers that form part of the cytoskeleton and provide the structure and shape of eukaryotic cells. Okay, so next, function of cytoskeleton. So it gives shape to the cells. Second, cell movement. And third, we have movement of organelles within the cells. So the next one, we have the cilia and flagellia. So when we talk about a cilia class, is an organelle found in eukaryotic cells in the shape of slender protuberance that project from the much larger cell body. Another one is flagellia. So flagellia class, it is microscopic hair-like structures involved in the locomotion of a cell. So I have here class a picture about cilia and flagellia. So this is the picture of cilia. Okay, this is clear glass, and this one the flagellia. So the difference between cilia class and flagellia, which is cilia is small hair-like structures that project out of the cell, while flagellia whipped-like structures. And also motor proteins and move like a propeller driving the cell forward. Lastly, move back and forth in rowing like motion in cilia. Flagellia away from or toward stimuli. So today, we will having our activity based on our discussion. Okay? So I will group you class into two groups. So this is an alpha group and Bravo group. So the group that has the highest point will have an additional 5 points bonus for our quiz. So let's start. Okay, question number 1. How does sperm cell move around? Okay, anyone from the group? Yes, alpha group. Okay. Yes, very good. So, it moves because of flagellum that acts a propeller to move it forward. Okay, so I will give you 1 point. Number 2, how do cells move? Okay, anyone from the group? Okay, alpha again. Yes. Okay, very good. Very good answer. So, the cells move by the help of cytoskeleton that maintain the shape of the cell and organize the organelles within the cell. Okay, another 1 point. Number 3, provide one of the 3 types of protein fibers of the cytoskeleton. Okay, anyone from the group? Okay, yes, bravo group. Answer, what are the 3 types of protein fibers of the cytoskeleton? Okay, very good. We have the microfilaments, intermediate filaments, and microtubules. Okay, 1 point. 1 point. Okay, so now question number 4. Provide one difference between cilia and flagellae. So, okay, alpha. Yes. Very good. So, the way they move is different because the cilia is moving coordinated while the flagellae is moving independently. So, alpha group, you have 1 point again. So, you have 3 points and 1 point. 3 points and 1 point. So, I will give 5 bonus for the highest score alpha. So, I will give 5. 8. Oh, so that's all for this morning class. I hope you learned our topic. Then next meeting we will talk about the cell membrane. So be prepared and prepare also your color materials because we will having some poster making or other etc. So good luck and goodbye.